It's time for the Full Press Hockey Podcast with Jim Biringer and Bruce Zeman.
Shoots! He scores!
And now, with a trip around the National Hockey League, here's Jim and Bruce.
Welcome back. Full Press NHL Podcast here. I'm Jim Biringer, the host, the voice of Full Press Hockey. Back again with my good buddy, Rob Simpson. This time, VancouverHockeyInsider.com. He also does SeattleHockeyInsider.com, but that was last week. Go check it out. Full Press Hockey Podcast up on YouTube, also iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. But this time, we're talking the Vancouver Canucks. Rob, thank you for taking the time tonight.
My pleasure, Jim. It looks like I like what you've done back there. You've got more stuff.
Yes, I got more stuff. Yes, I do. If those that are watching or just listening, but if those that are watching, you can see the background. Got some banners, bobbleheads, got pictures, just a bunch of things going on here on the bookshelf. Yeah, a lot of pucks going on. There might be a Vancouver one in there somewhere. Yeah, there's a Vancouver one sitting around in there somewhere. But we're talking to the Vancouver Canucks tonight on this episode of Full Press NHL Podcast. They make it to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. They lose to the Edmonton Oilers Game 7. How is the season being viewed out in Vancouver? Is it being viewed as a successful season under Rick Tocchet?
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, how could you not, considering where they've been and the fact that their only playoff performance prior to that in the last foreseeable past, I don't think that is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's possible. You get the drift. Was the bubble year, right? When Thatcher Demko stood on his head and they had a pretty productive postseason. Got through, I think it was Minnesota in what was a qualifying round. It didn't even really count as an official playoff. Anyway, they hadn't been there in a while. It was a great year, 109 points. They win the division, one of the top teams in the league point-wise. Everybody gelled. Everybody played well. Huge key was Philip Hronek having a full-time presence with Quinn Hughes on the blue line, just let him open his game up and win a Norris Trophy. So a lot of things fell into place. Some health issues, which reared their head in the postseason. Brock Boeser had an illness. A couple other guys were dinged up. And, of course, Thatcher Demko was gone. Lost him in that Nashville series and did not return. Artur Silovs stepped in. And we can get into that a little bit later about the goaltending, about how much you can pray or hope to count on that. I mean, he was great. But then again, so was, what was the kid's name? I'm already forgetting. Spencer Martin.
Spencer Martin was good, but so was Casey DeSmith played well in the goaltending. He was good.
He was a veteran who stepped in, but I mean, a couple of years ago, at the end of this 21-22 season, Spencer Martin stepped in when Demko was hurt, and it was like, oh, here he is, the second coming, and they put all their ducks and put all their eggs in that basket. So, I've always liked Silovs. I've seen him since he showed up. I was covering the training camp when he was here, when he first got here, and I've always liked him, and he was sound. But again, limited experience, limited track record. You have to be a little bit careful. And then it raises a question about Demko and his health, because there seems to be almost like a chronic thing going on now, whether it's groin, knee, let's call it lower body. That's a big issue. You notice, Jim, how I just gradually and naturally transitioned the entire conversation into goaltending.
Yep.
Because I have so many legends have pointed out over the years, you might as well change the name of the game to goalie. Because if you don't have one, just ask Tom Fitzgerald in New Jersey.
Yeah, we know what happened there.
You are screwed. So I bring that up.
They picked up a former Vancouver goalie, and they acquired Mr. Jacob Markstrom. So
former Canucks, former Flames, but yeah, that's where it begins and ends. I hate to break the news to everybody that doesn't want to believe that ever. So that's kind of out of the way. That's that situation. But yeah, great season. Fantastic. We'll see if they can keep it going. They've made some changes.
Would you say, look, the way I'm about to phrase it, Canucks fans may get, a little heated. Did they get lucky to get by Nashville the way they were playing and trying to like just survive games and not try to score as much as possible?
Well, they were the more talented team. They were the deeper team, and the way that kind of shows up in a series. Was it which game when Nashville blew the lead late? And
Game four.
game four, it would have been 2-2. Instead, it became 3-1 Vancouver. The fact that the Canucks pulled that off, that spoke volumes as to kind of where the two teams were. So whatever the style of play had been, or whatever the modus operandi up until that point, the fact that they were able to pull that off, that was it. That was the step towards, okay, we're going to handle this. We're going to move on. That moment generally doesn't happen to a team that ends up having a successful postseason. I mean, occasionally you'll have a comeback in a first round. We've seen on rare occasions the down 3-0 come back and win 4. But by the way, Canucks almost did it to the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah.
So you can look at it that way if you want. Like, forget Nashville. They did what they had to do to beat Nashville. They got through that. It was pretty damn interesting. They made it very, very interesting. The Oilers. They were bullets.
They did. I mean, Seaboss played well against Edmonton. And look, Edmonton was up huge in game 1, and they won game 1. They came back. Vancouver came back and won that. They had chances to put that series away. They couldn't do it. The back and forth goaltending for Edmonton. But look, to me, I agree with you. I think this was a successful season for the Vancouver Canucks. I don't think a lot of people had pegged them to be even a playoff team to begin the year. No one really knew what was going on there. They bring in Elias Lindholm. He's not there anymore. He had a decent playoff, but he didn't have a great regular season. Zadorov played well, but now he's in Boston. Both guys are in Boston, a heated rival. But Roenick, to me, stood out. I mean, that was a great acquisition. Carson Soucy as well. Defensively, those two guys really helped this Canucks team take the next step.
Yeah, and speaking of injuries, Soucy had a couple of them early on and late, so that didn't help things, but he'll be back and ready to go. Zadorov out the door. Showed some goal-scoring prowess, was getting the puck through, which is very important from the blue line, was finding the net, and I think became a fan favorite. What's not to love about the guy? If he's scoring goals, he's an absolute monster. He beats the crap out of people with hits, etc. And they'll love him in Boston, that's for sure. But they actually get bigger. I just wrote a piece, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, VancouverHockeyInsider.com, which is, it's sparing in the summertime, but a few things have popped up. Daniel Sprong being one of them, the former Kraken, who we talked about their fourth line last week when he was there. Just the fact that these Canucks have made some changes on the blue line and actually gotten bigger. The other article was about how I heard some people talking in the market about everybody is going to get smaller. All the D is going to get smaller. No. Cups are going to teams that get bigger, stronger, tougher. And now they've added, even though they lost Zadorov or he moved on, I still think it might be it's got to be the biggest D-core they've ever had, even with him, a behemoth out of the lineup. They added Vincent Desharnais and Derek Forbort, which might be their third pair. And then Soucy's a big boy. Myers is a monster. And then you got the water bug up front and his assistant, Hughes and Kronik. But you got 4 big boys back there.
Yeah.
For the Canucks. So we'll see how that works out. I would be a little concerned. It doesn't always work out. Obviously, size-wise.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has to be more of a complement, more of a mix. You don't have to go all big. The Sharks, was it the 16 final? Their third pair was exploited because of mobility. I would be concerned that this core could be a bit exposed mobility-wise if this is what they go with throughout the duration. But I don't think they're done. I think Jimmy Rutherford and Patrick Waldine will kind of keep things fluid.
You mentioned Tyler Myers. Was that a little bit of surprising that he got a 3-year extension? Because there was a lot of talk that they were going to maybe move on from him. He was in trade rumors. They were going to get out of that contract, and then boom, after Dakota Joshua signed, which I love the signing there by keeping him. He's a great player, fits third, fourth line. But then I saw Myers, and I'm like, I thought they were trying to move on from this guy.
Yeah, that was another article I wrote, was the debate for fans here between Zadorov at $5 million or Myers at $3 million. So he basically gets his pay cut in half. He's a favorite whipping boy of fans and the media. I remember being in that press box before I was banned, by the way, for 2 years, going on 3. Just to put that in perspective, don't know why, still haven't been told. Amazing, isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Steve Moore almost gets killed by Todd Bertuzzi. I think he got 20 games. Then there was the lockout. He was barred from international play, came back, and then ended up playing in the NHL right after that. Stan Bowman's now a general manager of the league again, and Joel Quenneville's eligible to coach. By the way, they got paid the entire time, so they weren't crying too much into their soup while they were out for the 2.5 years. But they're back for a sexual scandal. And I'm banned by the Canucks now I'm assuming going into year 3, and by the Writers Association, which was really strange, for no reason. Without explanation, that continues to be the case. So yeah, that's. I don't know where I started that, but I just thought I'd have to bring that up because it's so ridiculous. Back in the press box with Tyler Myers, when I was up there covering the team at every game and every practice, they gave him a lot of hell. He caught a lot of grief, and he did make a lot of boneheaded plays, and he's not getting younger.
No.
If you thought he was goofy and making bad plays and not so mobile earlier, what about when he's 35? So it's a little, I think they're dancing around back there a little bit. Don't go all big, don't go all small, like some said. Find the happy median and go with it. But again, it's a fluid situation. These guys they're not dum-dums.
No, they're not. Up front, obviously JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, Brock Boeser, offense, they were able to score goals when they needed to. Boeser we'll get to in a minute. Pettersson, he's had such great regular seasons, but then come the playoffs, at least this year, he just went away. It didn't, it didn't no explanation. I don't even think he could explain it. It's just like I don't want to say crumbled under the pressure, but something wasn't clicking for him in the playoffs. Maybe he's reading the media too much, listening to too much talk. Who knows? But something wasn't right because he looked like a completely different player.
It was odd. He ended up with 1 point short of being a half a point a game guy for the postseason. And what did he have? 1 goal? Look that up on the fly if we can. I think he just had the 1 goal. And it was unusual. There's no question about it. He had his opportunities, obviously had special teams opportunities. That's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And it may have been kind of counter strategy, if you will, planning and scouting and all that good stuff. But it sure did seem like the opportunities were there. And the play just did not live up to the opportunities that existed. And I'm not pulling out any funky analytical stats on missed nets and shot ops and all this good stuff. We can do that. But yeah, eye test, it was very weird.
Yeah, I mean, and just looking at NHL.com, it was the 1 goal. He had 6 points in 13 games, 1 goal, 5 assists for the Canucks in the playoffs. And, for a guy that signed a contract extension, right before the trade deadline and got paid, that's not what the expectations are supposed to be for a guy that just got a big raise going into the playoffs, especially a guy who's won, Rookie of the Year. I know he's had some injuries, but he came off, the injury, had a great regular season. And you're thinking, okay, we need that guy, and he's not there. You know, JT Miller did his thing. Brock Boeser showed up, especially in that game 4 against Nashville. But then again, he had his illness, and he's a player for the Canucks that's going into the final year of his contract, and he was eligible to sign an extension on July 1st. Do you think that's just going to continue to linger into the season, or do they try to get it done beforehand, or where do you see that, situation going?
Are you at this point referring to Boeser?
Yes.
Yeah, Boeser. $6.5 million. I remember when he signed his last one, it was actually surprisingly high at the time. Had some personal issues a couple seasons back with his father passing away. That kind of overlapped the end of one season into another, and then he broke his hand. It was just kind of a bad run for him, and he couldn't get to the 30-goal mark, and then suddenly, bang, he blows up and has a huge year this past season. So good for him. He's a great kid, great guy. Happy for him that way. I don't know. I don't have an answer in terms of how they're approaching this and how long they'll wait to take care of it. I think they'll be a little bit leery, although he's only 27. He's not one of these guys, pushing mid-30s. He still has a lot of potential, and obviously he's coming off a great season. The whole thing, it's so funny. I've said it's human nature. It's hockey nature. I've seen it so many times. Guys sign. They have incredible years in their contract years. Daniel Sprong, by the way, just said it in his press conference. I'm like, really, Spronger? He's like, yeah, me and Geeky and Donato were looking to make some money when we were in Seattle, and we all did. But it didn't work out there. It's because they had 4 years. They helped the team make the playoffs. They all get paid $2 million each the next season. One for 1 year, the other 2 for 2 years. So they cashed in in contract years and helped the team make the postseason. It's time and time again, you see it. Sometimes it's slightly more dramatic and ridiculous than other times. The poster boy is Jonathan Huberdeau.
Yeah. Oh.
Contract here. Oh my God. What do you have? 117 points or 100?
Yep.
Sign the deal. Oh, I'm lost again. And I know he had a change of venue, but come on. Anyway,
yeah,
it cracks me up. Some are just so.
It's ridiculous, right? Because like you said, these guys hit big in their contract year, and then where are they after that?
Right. But that's not everybody. That's not everybody.
No, that's not everybody.
It's not everybody, but it is everybody, whether they continue it on or not, that has a 90%, 80%, some ridiculous number have their best season in that late 20 contract season. It's just the way it is. And we get it, but come on,
guys.
Right? And Spronger now he's back he plays for $2 million, and now he's back for $975,000. Oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to giving him a chance, good team and all that. So it's a 1-year deal. Now he gets to try to prove himself again. He will move up and down that lineup. I mean, he could be playing down on the bottom. He could be playing on the second line. It'll be really, I'm curious to see what he does. There's other issues there, and I'm not going to get into it, but Spronger's in Vancouver making $975, and we'll see where he's got a howitzer shot. He's got a great release, and I just don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I hear you on that. And at the beginning, you talked about the goaltending. Demko, injury prone. Let's see if he can get a healthy season together, because the Canucks have a team that can make a run. But then there's Arthur Sivas, and he's the backup right now. He got a new contract, nice deal. That's your tandem going into this season. Is that something you're confident in? I mean, we know what the kid did in the playoffs, but now let's see if we can do it again, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would just raise the 2 questions that I brought right off the top, because it is the most important position, and that is, can Seelops keep it going? I mean, he should be able to. I mean, based on his his development track, one would have confidence. It doesn't seem like a flash in the pan guy. but in the Demko just raised the same issue again, just how nagging or how chronic or how potentially costly could this or the other thing, lower body, be for him, because it is now indubitably reoccurring.
Yeah.
And it reoccurs at bad times.
Very bad times.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. Not only unfortunate for the Canucks, but also unfortunate for Team USA.
Oh, yeah.
Here's
For Nations Cup.
Well, I'm looking ahead 2 years to Cortina / Milan and Milano and Team. I mean, it's been forever since NHLers have earnestly been involved in this thing. We skipped an entire generation of players not giving an opportunity to play in the Olympics. And it was kind of a foregone conclusion. Demko and Hellebuck.
Yeah.
Americans had the best goaltenders or near the top. Canada is weak in that area. But now Demko, you have to wonder, like, where's this guy going to be in 2 years? I'm hoping I love talking to the guy. He's just a cool cat, but I hope he's fine. But again, you brought it up or brought us back around to it. There's your question marks. Is Seeloff's keeping it going and Demko's health?
Yeah, those are big time question marks. Big time question marks for the Canucks coming into this season. And I think another question mark for me with this Vancouver Canucks team is what Jake DeBrusk are you going to get? Because the kid's talented, signed a 7-year contract with the team, got paid, but consistency has been his issue with the Boston Bruins. You don't know what player you're getting night to night.
Well, you kind of answered your own question there, because I've done some games with his dad back a few years. Love Louis, and may have run into Jake, I think, once. I'm trying to think where the hell that was. And maybe a couple times. I think I only had an opportunity to chat with him once. He didn't get, was it Butch Cassidy he didn't get along with so well? It wasn't.
Oh, yeah, Bruce Cassidy, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. And it wasn't Monty. Anytime you see that always raises a little bit of a concern for me.
Mm-hmm.
When could it be that bad when you got a team that's that good and never got really deep into the issues of what he was complaining about. Ice time, power play, it could be anything, right?
Yeah. So
he's now a Canuck for potentially 7 years.
Potentially.
Yeah. No, but he brings skill. He brings a fresh outlook. He brings a fresh start for him. Utterly change in geography. So that'll be good for him. Travel is going to be a hell of a lot more difficult than what he's been used to. That's going to take a little time to adjust. But I'm just looking at the roster, and I mean, they're kind of the same, only different in terms of the caliber, right? Connor Garland, for example, is a guy who proved that, like, his life is hockey. I remember doing a couple one-on-ones with him a couple of years ago and just thinking, God, this guy is like, he's also all about hockey. He's just wired, dialed into hockey. He's just this little guy who just loves it. And he proved it. And he showed up big for the Canucks in this past postseason. Mm-hmm. And people were discounting him, ready to get rid of him, but that's standard operating procedure here, that they go through that cyclically with almost every player on the roster. But he proved himself. Otherwise, it's just, you brought up Boeser. I'd be curious to see what goes on there. He's supposed to be healthy for training camp. Did Höglander legitimately and seriously take the next step? Nils Höglander, who, couldn't play a 200-foot game. Has he finally turned the corner? They've been developing him for a few years now. You mentioned Joshua, sorry. Not Talk's favorite player at the start of the year. Was just like, this guy's got to pick it up. And then, holy moly, that's why you give people opportunities to prove themselves or give them a second chance.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he did that, and he proved himself. Danton Heinen and Kiefer Sherwood. I mean, it's kind of the same in terms of knock your socks off, in my opinion. Similar question marks, if not, we're talking about the goalies, the D, and the size and the mobility, and then will you get guys continuing to produce up at the top of the line?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, Pat Colson's there too, and the young Swede, right? Let's see if he makes that team. Lekaramäki is his name, Jonathan Lekaramäki.
Lekaramäki, their first rounder from a couple of years ago. Yep.
He's always been impressive at the World Juniors for Sweden. He's got that punch they're looking for as well. Like, to me, the Vancouver Canucks are always a team that, they could be a good team in the division, could just fall outside the playoffs. You're just not sure where they are in terms of, okay, well, who are they better than? Edmonton, I don't think Edmonton's going to have the start that they had last year, and Vancouver beat the snot out of them every game in the regular season, which was like, okay. But again, Vegas, we talked about where Seattle's going to finish, but Vancouver, it feels like they should be a playoff team again, right?
Should be a playoff team again. I don't think they'll end up with 109 points. I don't think they're going to have that kind of run. They're not going to surprise anybody. And Edmonton will be rip-roaring and ready to go, although they will have a little bit of a Stanley Cup loss hangover, which oftentimes is worse than the hangover for teams winning it. The East seems to be getting deeper and more talented. The West, Pacific, not as much. I mean, it's between Edmonton and Vancouver now. Like, where the hell are the Calgary Flames? LA,
not there.
LA's amazing, but I don't see them with 105 or 110 points. I see them kind of where they've been. They'll not sneak in. They'll get in there in the high 90s points wise. Seattle's done nothing to blow your doors off, the playoff team from 2 years ago, but we've talked about it. Everything fell into place for them that one season. No way they're going to duplicate it last year, and they probably won't duplicate it this year. So, yeah, the door's wide open for Vancouver. If they weren't to make the playoffs, it'd be a absolute shock and a disaster. So they're a playoff team. But to the caliber of what caliber they will be at is that obviously it's the question.
Yeah. Real quick before we wrap this up today on the podcast, I just want you to get your thoughts on teams that impressed you during free agency, sticking out west right now. I mean, you can throw teams in the East if you want, but teams that impressed you during free agency.
Oh, real quick, by the way, it left out the Vegas Golden Knights. That doesn't mean I don't think the Vancouver Canucks will not be a playoff team. Free agency, I like that team that you're sitting right in front of right now.
That team.
Talk about the New Jersey. Talk about the New Jersey Devils. Besides the fact that you hopefully now have goaltending. But didn't you think you kind of had goaltending with Vanacek?
I didn't.
No,
I didn't. Here's my reasoning, because I thought it was exposed against Carolina in 2003 in the second round. I thought the goaltending was exposed in the playoffs that year. I thought it was.
Huh.
That's just me. But I'm the team's harshest critic. So
my other question is, how did the coaching situation change so quickly? I thought Greener was going to be the guy.
I think they wanted to go outside the organization. I thought Greener was going to be the guy too. I thought they took steps under Travis Green. I really liked him there as an assistant. He was a great person. So great to talk to. And by the way, shout out to Ottawa when you get him in the press room. When he comes in, even after loss, he's like, "Hey guys, how you doing?" Smile on his face. He's ready to talk, and he's such a great coach. And they definitely improved under him. I think just the moves with New Jersey were just a little too late.
Well, he'll get very serious. Like I don't want to say he's like obsessive compulsive, but Greener does have a little bit of that in him, and he will get very serious and not so jokey wokey as the time kind of moves along here. So here I'll answer your question with another question. Is Tampa Bay kind of this perennial team? Coop's an old pal. Stamkos, that whole Sitchy, it fascinates me, but I think it's the right thing.
Ooh, tell.
I think it was time, because of where that team's been, and it's coming off the hump. It won back-to-back. It was hovering around, and you know where that heads eventually.
Yep.
Right? Down. I think it was time to shake it up, shake up the core. They're all going to show up for training camp. It's not going to be, wow, oh, we lost our friend. Well, guess what? It's time to play hockey. Let's go. So I don't know. I didn't have so much of a problem with it. Now once the ice chips settle, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point to make. I mean, and then like some people, it's a choice, right? They took Getzel over Stamkos, but I look at more with Tampa again, with financial responsibility being a thing, and you can't pay Stamkos. Why are you taking on $6.75 million over the next 2 years on Ryan McDonough?
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
That's just my counterpoint to it. But again, look, I mean, they're better defensively. Coop is a good coach. I think he's going to get the most out of his players. He always does. But I think Nashville's a team that you're going to want to watch, to me, in the Central Division just because of the ads that they made.
Right. I think the Leafs will be interesting. They have to have goaltending, obviously. I just did a show with Kevin McGran, one of the beat writers for years there, the other day, and he talked about the young netminder and with Wall, and then they brought in Anthony Stolarz, it's hard to believe that Anthony Stolarz is 30 years old.
Wow.
I remember when he was coming up with Philly, it was like he was a big deal then. I think the Bruins did well with Lindholm and Zadorov for a team that still kind of has that no-name bottom six. They just seem to win anyway, and that's obviously going to help them. Back to the Leafs with Ekman Larsson and Stolarz, and of course Chris Tanev. So will the Leafs finally be a little more than a disappointment? It's all in the East for me, is the stuff that was mentioned. Gensel down in Tampa taking another reason why I kind of like that move. So
no, it makes sense. The East is definitely loaded for sure.
They've loaded up and they've gotten stronger, and I don't want to say the traditional teams, because I've never had any confidence in Toronto, and I've always just kind of chuckled about.
Hey, Toronto's got to prove it still, right? Toronto's still got to prove it in the playoffs when it matters most, like a lot of teams. Again, it circles back to what we said off the top: goaltending. That's where it comes down to with every team. You build from the net out. Number one goalie, number one defenseman, number one center. That's the way it goes. And look, Vancouver's going to be a team to watch. I think a lot of the teams that made moves are going to be teams to watch this season. And I can't wait to have you back on the podcast talking about it.
Yeah, it'll be nice to get back into the camps here and see these bodies in their new uniforms, their new sweaters.
Yes. Those sweaters. I can't wait to see those sweaters.
They're like Brandon Montour and Chandler Stevenson for the Seattle Kraken, who we talked about last week.
Yep.
I don't know, enough to push them over the hump. Because I think your three, as we've talked about in the Pacific, are locked in at the top: Vancouver, Edmonton, Vegas. right?
I think so. I think so too. I think that's a great top three in the Pacific, and that would be my top three too.
And then it just becomes this like wild card chase between the Pacific hopefuls, which I don't see them as very hopeful, and the Central, right?
Yes.
And three of those teams have to make it. That said, that middle is very mushy.
The murky middle.
There could be some ugly 7th and 8th seeds in the West this next season. We'll leave it open. Let's just keep the optimism alive for everybody.
I like it. Rob Simpson, you can get him. SeattleHockeyInsider.com, VancouverHockeyInsider.com. Check him out. He's got stuff up. Simmer Puck on X, Twitter, whatever YouTube as well. Check it out. Who you got? Who was on? McGran was the latest episode, or you got a new one dropping?
I had a Philly one with Russ Cohen. I had a McGran one. I had God, whoever it is going to shoot me for not remembering this right away. But no, I've had another one, and I'm gonna have 2 or 3 more. I'm losing track because I've been talking to so many guys about hitting each team.
Yes.
So it's been going that way. By the way, the YouTube Simmer Puck, if you get a chance, pop over there because I just posted an old show we did with Ray Scapinello, the old linesman.
Oh.
A lot of you younger folks will be like, "Who's that?" Well, he was he skated in more NHL games in history, and the record will never be touched because he was an official for 33 years.
Wow.
2,500 regular season games. And back then, when he was throughout his work career, when he ended in 2004, they'd schedule back-to-back nights. There was only so many officials, so there wasn't a limit. There wasn't like the union with all the rules. So now a guy only works so many times a year. So if a linesman, even if he was a stud who 21 years old, made it to the NHL and linesman, and he was a linesman for 35 years until his mid-50s, he's not going to break Scampy's record because they just don't do many games in a year. 2,500 games, 426 playoff games, and 21 Stanley Cup Finals, which you make on merit. So anyway, in his last season, we put a mic on Madison Square Garden for 2 straight nights, once against the Devils, once against the Islanders. It was unbelievable, and it's a half-an-hour show, and it's on Simmerbuck, and I just put it back up there as an anniversary thing a couple days ago. A lot of fun to see that again. He's a Hall of Famer, by the way, first ballot Hockey Hall of Famer as an official.
Wow, congratulations, Scampy. One of the best to do it. One of the best to do it himself, Rob Simpson.
Ooh. You are something.
Oh yeah, I'm good. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming on the Full Press NHL podcast today. Always a pleasure having you on, talking some puck.
Yes, all my best to you, Jimmy, and all my best to Fitzy, the team man running that team behind you too. He's a great man.
Yes, he is. Guys, check it out. Full Press Hockey Podcast on YouTube. Get it at Full Press NHL on Twitter as well when it's up. Also, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Guys, enjoy the off season. We'll be back again real soon. Take care.
Barry Trotz, Nashville Predators, making sure you're listening to Full Press Hockey Podcast.